evening, everyone. This is Urab Desai with the Thursday, September 13th, 2018 Tropical Weather Outlook. Now, taking a look at the Atlantic Basin for today, we do have still a lot of activity going on, as we still have four named storms. However, it's not quite as active as it was a couple of days ago, as the storms are beginning to wind down. Now, if we take a look at the Atlantic Basin, we currently have still Invest 95L here, just off the coast of Mexico and Texas. We have, of course, Category 2 Hurricane Florence, which is just about to make landfall on the North Carolina coast shortly. We have Tropical Storm Isaac here that's just gone through the Leeward Islands and is now in the eastern Caribbean Sea. We have Tropical Storm Helene, which is in the far eastern Atlantic, and just northwest of that we have Tropical Storm Joyce. Begin with taking a look at a subtropical storm Joyce, actually, which is barely hanging on now. Winds of just 40 miles an hour, moving southwest at 6 miles per hour. And the NHCZC does actually have the storm dissipating by Sunday. And if you look at the satellite presentation, it's not looking very good at all. The storm looks quite disorganized. Actually, the center of circulation is open here, and there's very few thunderstorms, just a few thunderstorms here popping up to the right. And Joyce is getting sheared apart by Tropical Storm Helene to its right, which is approaching rapidly from the south. And looking at the shear map, the wind shear map here, you can see that wind shear of about 40 to 50 knots is approaching Joyce, and it's shearing it apart. And so Joyce will be dissipating shortly. Now looking at Tropical Storm Helene, Helene is now a tropical storm with winds of 65 miles per hour, moving rapidly to the north at 21 miles per hour. And it is actually forecast to impact the Azores Islands Saturday through Sunday, which is why there are tropical storm watches posted for the entire Azores Islands. And if we look at the satellite presentation for Helene, Helene is also getting sheared apart. However, it is still holding its own as it begins to phase into its extratropical transition. Extratropical storm is basically a cold core storm, and that's what happens to a lot of hurricanes as they move to the more northern latitudes. They begin to acquire non-tropical characteristics, which is what's going on with Tropical Storm Helene at the moment. Now, if we look back at the 5-day cone, it does have it over the Azores Islands Saturday through Sunday, and then as it becomes extratropical, it has the remnants or whatever is left of Helene at the time moving into the British Isles of Ireland and the UK sometime Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday evening. And the discussion for Helene has it weakening to 60 miles per hour in the next 12 hours. However, it will be staying at 60 miles per hour until it becomes extratropical. So interest in the Azores Islands should be making preparations now. It will be bringing relatively gusty winds and some heavy rain to that area. Now we also have Tropical Storm Isaac in the eastern Caribbean, which is barely hanging on for life now. It's just a minimal tropical storm with winds of just 40 miles per hour, and the NHC forecast has it weakening to a depression by tomorrow afternoon, and then has it dissipating sometime Monday afternoon to Monday evening. If you look at the satellite for Isaac, you can see that the storm is quite disorganized. There are some heavy thunderstorm activity still going on here, but there is no clear defined center. I would say that the center of circulation is probably somewhere in here. However, the center is not defined, and because there's some wind shear still impacting the storm here, and there will be an area of lower wind shear of 15 knots or so, moderate wind shear, and that's where Isaac is heading into. However, there is some heavier wind shear just west of that of 30 knots, and so that wind shear will probably impact Isaac in the next couple of days, and that is why the NHC has it dissipating in the next 5 days. And if we look at the model forecasting for the intensity, most of the models do have it dissipating or staying weak in the next 5 days, but a few do have it strengthening after 3 to 4 days and becoming a strong tropical storm. Some even have it approaching hurricane strength and becoming a hurricane. So there is still a chance that Isaac will strengthen once it reaches the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. So don't count Isaac out yet. It might still strengthen down the road. If you look at the model tracks, most of the models do have it approaching the Western Caribbean Sea, and some have it impacting the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, some have it impacting Jamaica and Cuba, and some have it going into the Gulf of Mexico. There's even one model that doesn't have it impacting Florida. So it might still pose a threat to the U.S. and the Gulf of Mexico sometime in the future, but it's still uncertain as of now. We still have Invest 95L to talk about as well over here, and it's not very well defined on the satellite, however. It's still very disorganized. The NHC now has only a 50% chance of development over the next 2 days and the next 5 days, and it's rapidly approaching land. As you can see on the model track, it's going to impact northern Mexico and southern Texas within the next 24 hours. So the system has very little time to get organized and become a named storm. And most models do not have it developing into a named storm, a tropical storm. Only 2 models have it reaching tropical storm strength. So it's unlikely at this point that it's going to become a named storm. Now, of course, the big story continues to be powerful Category 2 Hurricane Florence, which is now just a few miles off the coast of North Carolina. It's a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles per hour with a pressure of 955 millibars, and the west movement is now just west-northwest at just 5 miles per hour. So the storm is definitely beginning to make it stall, and it's going to be stalling off the North Carolina coast and inland over the next couple of days. Now, just because Florence is weaker than it was expected. Remember, it was expected to originally be a Category 4 hurricane at landfall, but now this is a Category 2. But just because it's a Category 2 does not mean that it's anything to be taken lightly, as the storm is very large, and so it's still going to have a lot of storm surge associated with it. And because it's going to stall, there's going to be hurricane force and tropical storm force winds over an extended duration of time, and it's also going to be bringing a lot of rain to the North Carolina coast and other areas inland as well. The official discussion for Florence has it making landfall as a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles per hour in the next 12 to 24 hours. Then it has it weakening, however, it will not be weakening very quickly as it will still be close to the coast. So it will still have some water to draw its strength from. And then the path does have the remnants of Florence going into Pennsylvania and New York Monday into Tuesday. If we look at the public advisory, the hurricane force winds are now extending up to 80 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend out to 195 miles from the center. So that does show you just how large the system has grown over the past couple of days. The observing site Cape Lookout actually apparently did reports the same wind of 82 miles per hour and a gust of 97 miles per hour. So the hurricane force winds are definitely impacting the area now, and the hurricane force winds will be impacting North and South Carolina coast for the next couple of days. Look at the satellite image now for Hurricane Florence. You can see that the system is still looking relatively organized, not as good as it looked yesterday and the day before, of course, as it has weakened since then due to wind shear. However, the system does still look formidable, and the eye has been covered now with clouds. It's not a clear, distinct eye like it used to have. However, there are still cold cloud tops here indicated by the black and whites around the center of circulation, which indicates that the storm is maintaining its strength that it still has, and it's still a strong Category 2 hurricane. And you can see also by the satellite that the system is beginning to stall here, as it has not moved much over the past few hours of this satellite loop. Look at the rainfall potential for Florence. You can see that for areas such as Wilmington and other areas in southern southeast North Carolina coast, that it will be could receive up to 20 inches or more of rain. And some areas could even see up to 30 inches of rain. And so this is still not anything to sneeze at. This is going to be a very severe and life-threatening storm for the North Carolina and South Carolina coast here. Northern South Carolina will also be receiving a lot of rainfall from this. So it's not anything to take lightly, and anyone who has not evacuated should be well prepared for the storm. Look at the model track guidance for the 18Z. The models do have it, of course, approaching the Carolina coast, but stalling either just offshore or just a few miles inland. And then they do have it system going into South Carolina. And then from there, of course, it will weaken, and then the remnants will be heading into Kentucky, Ohio, and then the remnants should be approaching Pennsylvania and New York, and then it will be giving some heavy rain to those areas, and those are areas that do not need any rain as they have received tons of it over the past week or so. So that could cause some additional flooding in areas inland. Now, after Florence, the tropics do seem to be dying down. As we look at the European model over the next 5 days, we do, of course, have Florence making landfall, and we have Helene approaching the Azores Islands. However, the European model does have Isaac weakening and dissipating by day 4. And then day 5, there is little to no activity in the Atlantic basin. We have this high pressure system in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and there are no areas of disturbed weather or invests or any named storms to talk about by day 5. If we compare that to the GFS model, GFS, of course, also has Florence making landfall and Helene, and it has Isaac dissipating as well. And by day 5, the tropics are, again, similarly quiet, as similar onto the European model. So the models are in agreement that the Atlantic will be taking a break after 4 to 5 days from now, and which is good because we need a break after all these systems we've been talking about over the past 2 weeks. So it's good that the Atlantic will be taking a break after Florence, Helene, and Isaac are done. That's all for today. I hope that anyone who has not evacuated for the path of Florence has prepared properly, and please do not return to the area after the storm hits, as there may be downed power lines and other debris in the ground, and make sure to stay safe.